It was a mystery that broke the hearts of two families, terrified a small community, and touched the world. The murders of two young girls, Abby Williams and Libby German. The case became known as the Delphi murders. The setting, a small Indiana town of just 3,000 people. From the beginning, investigators suspected it was someone local, which made it even more difficult for everyone from this small community. It started on February 13th, 2017, when Libby and Abby went hiking. The two teenagers were good friends and had the day off from school. The weather was unseasonably warm. But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry, and they began to search. Then, the next day, the bodies of these two girls were found, both victims of murder. Then over the course of the next 5+ years, there were no answers, no arrests, just a series of disjointed clues, like two sketches that looked nothing alike. A video of the suspected killer and a short audio recording of his voice. Then things got even stranger when police said they were looking for anyone connected to an Anthony Schatz social media account, which was not connected to the male model in the photos, but connected to this man who was arrested for child porn. Then came the arrest of Richard Allen for the murders of the girls, someone who was not on anyone's radar. Tonight, newly unsealed documents revealing information never before made public as we go in depth into the Delphi murders.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This is going to be a show unlike any we've done in recent times because this is a big case and we are learning information tonight that has never been made public before. Of course, it's the case of two young girls who were great friends and should be with us, Abby and Libby. Right? They are victims. And when the story first broke, one of the questions was there were two of them. So were there more than one person who was responsible for this? How did they attempt to control two girls and what happened here? And because of what these girls did, we're learning a lot more. That they were able to be controlled because the alleged killer had a gun. And these girls recorded the killer. And what's on that recording hasn't been released, but we've got descriptions tonight, new descriptions tonight of what they saw and heard on that video. And it's such a crucial piece of evidence in all of this. And you think about how smart and brave these two girls were at that moment where they didn't know exactly what was going to happen. They knew they were in danger. And because of the actions that they took, it seems that prosecutors will be able to present evidence and attempt to convict the man they believe is responsible for all this. Speaking of that man, this is like someone that no one knew. Everyone talked about so many people connected to this case, but no one knew this guy. Who was he? Where did he come from? Well, he's from that town. And they sort of suspected that all along, right? That it was someone local because of the nature of where everything happened. But how could he just be there and like no one, not even on the radar? Although, when you look back, he should have been on the radar from the beginning of all of this. We'll deal with that as well. But tonight, it's all about these unsealed documents and records that we have, that we are going to go through with an incredible panel who knows a lot about this case. But for those of you who don't know the backstory, Matt Johnson has more for us tonight.
Best friends 14-year-old Libby German and 13-year-old Abby Williams were dropped off for a walk at the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana, and were never seen alive again.
They got out of my car. I made sure they both had sweatshirts. I told them goodbye. I told Libby I loved her. They walked out, and that was the last time I saw them.
They never showed up to be picked up, and the next day, February 14, 2017, search volunteers found the girls' bodies in the woods. The mystery of the so-called Delphi murders was a big story across the country, and investigators revealed very few clues, including possible suspect sketches and parts of a recording found on Libby's cell phone. Nearly 6 years had passed with no real leads. Then, in October of 2022, a break in the case, an arrest.
Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation.
Police revealed their suspect had been living in plain sight all along. Richard Allen was a local husband and father, working as a farm tech in the town's CVS.
Now we have a person charged with it, right? We have a face, we have a name.
What would you say to Libby after you guys finally got this guy behind bars?
Oh, I believe that she helped lead them. I believe that she was steering all along. And I believe she's up there quite excited.
According to the probable cause affidavit, Allen placed himself on the trail when interviewed by police in 2017 and admitted to seeing the girls there. Police say an unspent round found near the girls' bodies went through a gun that belonged to Allen. And a witness allegedly placed a man who looked like Allen walking near the trail wearing muddy and bloody clothes.
It's scary just knowing that he was so close, and we had no idea.
Richard Allen has pleaded not guilty and denies any involvement in the murders of Libby and Abby.
Okay, let's bring in our guests who are going to help us break down these new documents tonight. Joining me here in studio tonight, investigative journalist and author of the new book, Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi, Susan Hendricks is with us. In Indianapolis, Indiana, the hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast and the pair who've been following the story from the very beginning and the reason why these documents have been released tonight, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. Also joining us in Palm Springs, California, retired FBI special agent, serial killer expert, Bobby Chacon, who's also an attorney. And finally, in Orlando, Florida, psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I want to begin. Let me put this up on the screen. This was something that jumped out to me. It comes from some of these motion papers that have been unsealed, talking about Richard Allen allegedly confessing on April 3rd, 2023. Richard M. Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard M. Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard M. Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. Wow. Anya and Kevin, let me begin with you. Your reaction to this confession, number one, did he confess to anyone else? And has his wife, my understanding is his wife has been going to court supporting him still.
Yes, she was there as recently as the June 15th hearing, which of course was the most recent hearing in his case. It's a very surprising thing to read, I would say. It's a huge deal, I think, for the prosecution and the defense. They're both going to have to contend with this. We don't know details like what exactly was said or how coherent it was, but it also seems to be, very much not a jailhouse snitch. This is on like a recorded line with his wife. So that is going to be something for the defense to certainly contend with.
Bobby Chacon, let me ask you that they do it all the time. I mean, this isn't the first case where someone has said something on those recorded lines. But those recorded lines, everyone knows they're recorded. There's an announcement, right? So it's not like you're sneaking a bug in the phone. Everyone on the line knows they're being recorded.
There's usually a nice, big, prominent sign right wherever the phones are that remind them that these are being recorded. However, If you have somebody that's never been in jail for a long time before, they can get worn down by the system. You know, we've already heard allegations by his defense that he's in bad health because of his conditions. And so this may be, you know, a case where he just got worn down physically and mentally, and he made maybe this mistake. I haven't seen the transcripts, so we don't know exactly what was said, but certainly they're characterizing it as confessions. And so this may be a case where he was worn down, he was talking to a loved one, and he made that confession.
Susan, they're talking about several times, not just once, but several times here.
Yeah, talking on the phone and just saying, I was shocked reading through these documents. And again, a thanks to Anya and Kevin, because of them, we have the documents that we're reading through, and not just once, Vinnie, as you said several times. So how damaging is this? The theme that I kept reading over and over again through these documents, it appears that the attorneys are going to say it's because of the facility that he's in. But the prosecutor, Nick McClellan, did point out, he said this, I'm quoting him, he said, the state believes the current status of the defendant's mental health is due to the status of the case, not due to the location of his incarceration. So reading through all of these documents, you kind of see a pattern here of what the defense attorneys are going for, mentioning that, oh, he only said that because his mental state is quickly deteriorating. I believe I read that he was eating paper that was given to him during this. So
he's got a lot of issues.
If that works, we shall see. Of course, Nick McClellan is saying, no, that's not it. He would be treated the same way no matter what facility he's in. Of course, when you're awaiting trial, you're not in a prison, you're in a jail waiting. This is different, but they said, look, he's being treated well, and it has nothing to do with that.
All right, Dr. Janie Lacey, this is why we brought you in. Now, Susan mentioned the eating of paper. Let me read you more from these papers that I will not eat. Investigators were made aware by the warden of Westville Correctional Facility that Richard Allen began to act strangely. Richard Allen was wetting down paperwork he had gotten from his attorneys and eating it. He was refusing to eat and refusing to sleep. He would go days on end refusing to sleep. He further broke the tablet that he used for text messages and phone calls. He went from making up to 2 phone calls a day on April 3rd to not making any phone calls at all. On April 14th, Richard Allen was evaluated by 2 psychiatrists and 1 psychologist. From that meeting, it was determined that Richard M. Allen did not need involuntary medication and that he did not need to be moved to another facility. Since that meeting, Richard Allen has began to eat again and has begun to sleep. His behavior has returned to what it was prior to making the admission on April 3rd, 2023. So, what are the things we should be trying to figure out in order to know whether or not to trust this alleged confession?
Well, we can make a lot of assumptions based off of what we know, Vinnie. One is that it's reasonable that he may have mental decline with all the things. We know that you are as sick as your secrets. So all the things that he may be juggling in his mental state, he can have been honest in this phone call and also having some mental health decline. But when we look at these types of behaviors, especially what he is being charged of, and then hearing him on the phone call with his loved one that he's attached to, who he's trusted, who he's had a life with, it could all exist in the same space. It's not necessarily one or the other, but it's reasonable to assume that based off of what we know, that of course he's going to have mental instability, he's going to have mental decline, and it can also be true what he shared with his wife.
So a follow-up to that, Dr. Jenny. So looking at someone physically, he looks different. We're looking at the pictures. He looks different. How much of an indication is that there could be something wrong with him mentally versus, hey, I used to be free, I'm no longer free, now I'm in jail, and you know, I'm facing the rest of my life, potential death penalty, sitting behind bars?
Well, we know, Vinnie, there is a very close correlation when we have toxic stress. We have all these things. It affects our body. We have accelerated aging, right? So when we look at this in general, of course he would age, of course, right? So the toxic stress, whatever he's going through in his mind, the things that he's telling himself, his maladaptive coping mechanisms under these situations will accelerate his aging process. And I believe that's exactly what we're seeing.
Also, in these documents, a letter from a fellow inmate, Robert Baston, and apparently we checked on his inmate number, and we believe, based upon the number on the letter, matched it up with someone who was convicted of child molestation. Anyway, this is what the fellow inmate says. I am an inmate at Westville Correctional Facility in the same unit that Richard Allen is being housed, awaiting trial. Richard Allen is being abused and mistreated along with other inmates in Westville Control Unit restrictive housing. There are corrupt officers and ranking officers calling Richard Allen a kid killer. Inmates threatening to kill Richard Allen and telling him to kill himself. And these inmates have made these comments in front of the warden. Anya and Kevin, what are you hearing about what's going on behind bars for this defendant?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of disturbing allegations in the letter. We looked into this inmate as well, and he seems to be a somewhat prolific jailhouse lawyer, as they say. He's often filing somewhat bizarre motions and, basically appeals for clemency in his own case, which is pretty horrific. So I think we're a bit skeptical about some of these claims unless further evidence is brought up, which, of course, he could be a bit of a jailhouse lawyer and be telling the truth here and be accurate. So we're not closed-minded about it, but I think we'd want to see a little bit more because, again, what he's accused of is pretty horrific, and he has a history of kind of making bizarre claims and basically filing into his own case in a way that does not enhance his credibility.
Yeah, Bobby, when I think of jailhouse lawyers, it's guys and sometimes women who have a lot of extra time on their hands. They have a little bit of knowledge that becomes dangerous. But for someone accused of what this man is accused of, it wouldn't be unusual for the abuse to come from other inmates. There's sort of a code that we hear about inside, depending upon what you did, who your victim was, etc. But here, I mean, they're basically accusing the warden of standing by and doing nothing and being corrupt.
Yeah, I would be surprised if any correctional institution in the country doesn't have people writing letters like this complaining about the behavior of guards and of wardens. It looks like name calling. It's really hard to police behavior in prison. I mean, these are people, some of these people are really bad actors out, when they're free. When you cage them up, they're going to be even worse. And so it's hard to kind of police name calling and things like that. When it's done by the guards or the wardens, it becomes a little more problematic. But again, you have to assess where the allegations are coming from and the credibility of the people making these allegations. Like I said, these guys farm themselves out to other inmates to write letters for them and write motions for them and stuff. And so I always take some of these allegations with a huge grain of salt until I can see for myself some additional verification of allegations like this.
Yeah. Susan, as you know, to me, the striking thing has been his appearance, right? This change in his appearance. And I guess the issue is going to be, what is causing this? Is it mental illness? Is it the way he's being treated? Or is it just now you've been caught and you are facing what you are facing? For the family, this is going to be difficult because now all of a sudden the focus is on the accused killer and what's wrong in his life.
Is he okay?
Yeah.
His mental health is deteriorating. We all know, of course, innocent until proven guilty, but now that we've been going through this paperwork, it's been a long road, Vinnie, as you said. What stood out to me, too, the biggest question, Vinnie and I have spoken about it, we all have, what happened to the conservation officer in terms of Richard Allen coming forward and saying, I was there at the bridge, I was wearing this is the time that I was there? Not knowing at the time that Libby took this video that you're looking at right here on your screen, and Bobby Chacon and I did a live show April 22nd, 2019, after the change of direction press conference. So it's been a long process, the investigative process, what we did know, what we weren't privy to. Now I'm going through this saying, okay, they named the conservation officer, but we still don't know why that happened. Again, it's a small town, small county. He knew that this is all people spoke about, so why didn't he think to come forward again? And even if he looked at Richard Allen as a possible witness and not a suspect, you would think, well, wait, I spoke to a guy that maybe
He was there.
fits that he was there. So there's still questions even with this. And of course, I believe there's 19 documents we did not see, but there's still so many questions. And again, long road for the family. There's things that I did find in here. Again, several knives were taken from his property, Richard Allen. And I believe it's the first time we heard that a knife was a murder weapon here. So we're getting tidbits of information, but I still have questions as to how that could have happened.
All right, and we've got more newly revealed documents coming up. We're going to stay on this. I want to thank Dr. Janie Lacey for joining us. Everyone else is staying with us. We'll take a look at those documents, plus coming up next hour.
In Park City, Utah, Corey Richens is accused of murdering her husband, Eric, the father of her 3 small children, by poisoning him with fentanyl. Prosecutors say the motive was money, and now the estate of Eric Richens suing Corey for $13 million for stealing money from her husband while he was alive.
Why did Eric lose his life? Why did the boys lose their father? Was it because of Corey's greed and desire to get life insurance and other assets? If so, that is abhorrent.
A woman and her 1-year-old son found dead in a park.
Now the child's father stands trial for their murders.
An ex-Border Patrol agent's life hangs in the balance in this high-stakes death penalty trial.
The state alleges a lawsuit over child support was his motive for murder.
Court TV cameras will be inside the courtroom, capturing every dramatic moment.
The Mistress and Child Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
So they know what the killer looked like for 5 years. They knew what the killer looked like. I mean, you had video of him. Thanks to Abby and Libby for taking that video. And you had a recording of the voice. Yet it took forever to solve this case. Now, tonight, we're getting this newly unsealed information. Let me put this. This is from the search warrant, folks. This stuff is huge. Take a look. Autopsies of the girls ruled their deaths as homicides, and their wounds were created by a sharp object. Elsewhere in the documents, it refers to a knife. So that's now confirmed, a knife. Investigators located Liberty German's iPhone 6S under her body at the scene and were able to recover video. We saw that little clip, the 12 seconds there, or the 6 seconds, however long it is, 3 seconds, of approximately 43 seconds in length. So there's much more to that video. Captured at 2:13 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. 43 seconds of video. They also determined that articles of clothing from the girls were missing from the scene, including a pair of underwear and socks, and a sock. That tells another part of what may have happened to these 2 girls. All right, worst case scenario, their last moments on Earth. Our guest still with us, Susan Hendricks, investigative journalist, Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, host of the Murder Sheet podcast, and Bobby Chacon, serial killer expert, former FBI agent and attorney. Okay, Susan, I'll start with you. The knife, the knife, the knife. This is huge, right? Like, and what happened to these girls, how they died, and now confirmed.
Becky, I've gotten close to both families, but Becky has said to me time and time again, look, Susan, we just don't have the information to discuss. I don't know the cause of death. I don't know how they died. And I've mentioned this before, that Kelsey at times had said to me, look, I don't even know if I want to know, because Mike, Libby's grandfather, was the one to see the body of Libby and say, yes, this is Libby. So what he saw and decided not to discuss is what has been privy to just police officers and investigators in this case. So seeing that, and imagine reading through this, as the family members I'm sure have, and hearing that it is a sharp object, that it is a knife, and going back to that day in 2017 and thinking about their final moments. Because I've heard it before from Mike saying, what keeps me going, Susan, is the last few minutes of these girls' lives and what they went through. And that is what they think about constantly in terms of finding justice. So when reading through these documents, I guess I was expecting some big, and we heard a lot of information. And we did hear that he confessed allegedly to, his wife in jail, and that we heard it was a knife. And again, I don't think this there is no such thing as closure, I've learned, or makes anything better. But it is more information that we know and that we shall see moving forward. It makes me wonder if this will go to trial. Will there be a plea deal? And we see the direction of the defense. They are going in on his mental state.
They have to. Mm-hmm. That's where you have to go. This evidence seems very overwhelming the more and more it comes out, despite the fact that it took 5 years to get here. Mm-hmm. Anya and Kevin, let's talk about the video. 43 seconds in length. And through the years, we just had that little tiny clip. It seems like this becomes so significant and so important in the case.
Yeah, that video is absolutely crucial evidence, and not just because of the fact that it captured the image and the voice of Bridge Guy, but because we've been learning now that it captured the girls. One of them makes a reference to this guy has a gun. You even hear the click of a gun, and that told investigators that a gun was used in this crime in some fashion. If it was not used to actually commit the homicide, it was likely used to control the girls and to intimidate them.
And Bobby, I'm still wondering, how is it that he knew to be there? Or did he just kind of show up? I always carry a knife and a gun with me. It seems like there would have to be more to the story. Like why he is there that day, Bobby. And we're seeing missing underwear and a sock. So, I mean, it just seems that there's could it be a coincidence that you have a killer there who happens to be walking with his gun and his knife?
That may remain a mystery, Vinny. The why to me is never as important as the how and the who. You don't need to prove the why at court most of the time. A motive is not really necessary. But you do want to know, and look, these are all people that are, local to the area. They've been there before. They frequent it. If he was having ideas about doing this, if he had some ideation growing in him, within him, and he was frequenting that bridge and saw girls there all the time, he just decided to choose this day and time to do this. We may never know that because that can only come from him definitively. We can guess at it, we can speculate on it, but unless we ever hear from him directly, which is unlikely, we'll never know the answers to those.
Anya and Kevin, I want to put up on the screen another part from the court papers that you got unsealed, referencing what you're talking about with the gun. Investigators believe Richard M. Allen was the male depicted in the victim 2's video saying, "Guys down the hill." They believe Richard Allen was carrying his Sig Sauer model P226 on that day due to the cycled rounds matching that firearm that was located within feet of victim 2's body. They further believe he was carrying the Sig Sauer model P226 from the audio from victim 2's video, in which investigators believe they hear the sound of the gun being cycled and one of the victims mentioning gun. So put together the pieces for us here, Anya and Kevin, about how the sound of the gun, the make and model of the gun, how all of this pieces together for prosecutors for their case.
Yes, absolutely. The Sig Sauer is absolutely crucial for the prosecution's case. This is a gun that Indiana State Police say they can conclusively link to the bullet found between the two bodies of the girls. And so that is something that ties Allen definitively to the scene. Before he's putting himself on the trails, he's putting himself on the bridge, he's nearby. But without that gun and with that bullet, there's nothing definitively that we know about at this point tying him to the scene. So in our view, the gun evidence and the ballistics evidence is pretty crucial for the prosecution to have.
So Bobby, I'm not a gun expert. Cycling a gun, what exactly does that mean? And could that result in a bullet being left at the scene?
Yes, so the P226 is the gun I carried in the FBI. I still carry that gun to this day. And cycling, it means, you've seen it on TV when they wrap the action back, it ejects a round. If one's in the chamber, it ejects it out. Now that bullet, it doesn't have to be fired to be, as soon as you rack it. Now often people rack a gun like that to intimidate or to scare somebody. Like you rack it, it's like racking a shotgun. When you rack a pistol, you say, okay, I mean business now. Now I've got one in the chamber. Because oftentimes if there isn't one in the chamber, you rack it like that to get one in the chamber. If there is one already and you rack it, you've ejected now a bullet that hasn't been fired. Now, a gun makes basically 3 impressions on a bullet. One is the bullet that, as it leaves the gun going through the barrel, there are something called lands and grooves, and that the projectile then can be matched to that barrel of that weapon. The other 2 markings come from the shell casing that never leaves the gun, never gets fired. One is on the primer when the hammer hits the primer, causing the little mini explosion and causing the gases to expand and force the projectile to the front. The other is when on a semi-automatic pistol, when it's ejected out of the gun, it has to be grabbed by the gun. That makes an impression on that shell casing, and then it gets ejected with force. That's almost like a fingerprint on that casing that's unique to that gun. They can fire 1,000 guns, every one will be different, and they can match it to the gripper, the thing that grips that shell casing before it ejects it. And that's what they've done here. They've matched the markings on that shell casing because it hasn't been fired, the bullet is still in it. But the outside of the shell casing has markings on it that will cause by that weapon grabbing it and ejecting it when the person cycled that weapon. Now, the defense is attacking this science as shaky, but this has been used in hundreds, if not thousands of cases as definitive proof that they've matched that bullet to that gun. Another thing that's key here is if you look at the interviews of him, they locked him in to that gun. They actually asked him, have you ever lent this gun to anybody? Does anybody else use this gun? Does anybody have access to this gun? And he said, no, 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 that's my gun. Only I have access to it. Only I carry that gun. So I knew when I read that they had known before that interview that they got that ballistic match. They wanted to lock him into that weapon, and he did in that interview say, this is only my gun. No one uses it. No one's had access to it.
And key for prosecutors at trial, you bring in an expert like Bobby Chacon who can explain that the way you just did, and that'll go a long way to convincing a jury. All right, everyone's staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the evidence that was collected from the search warrant of Richard Allen's home. That's next.
Richard Allen, you child murderer! Why did you do it? Shame on you! Shame on you, Richard! You're going to prison for the rest of your life!
We're learning a lot more about the investigation, the evidence in this case, newly unsealed documents from court. We've been going through them all day here at Court TV. We have an amazing panel of guests with us. So, items from the search warrant of his home. Let's take a look, put it up on the screen. One black Sig Sauer P226 40 caliber handgun. One 40 caliber S&W cartridge from a keepsake box on the bedroom dresser. One 40 caliber S&W cartridge from inside a Sig Sauer. 2 magazines containing 40 caliber cartridges. Multiple sweatshirts, jackets, hats, gloves, boots. Numerous knives, multi-tools, multiple laptops, multiple hard drives, multiple flash drives and memory cards, multiple cell phones, cutting of carpeted area underneath the spare tire of the Ford Focus, swabs of the driver lap belt and driver shoulder belt of the Ford Focus, 2 swabs from the passenger side of the carpeted floorboards. Remember, all this is years later, by the way, but remember, described as being covered in mud and blood. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, from that search warrant, what jumped out to you?
I thought it was really interesting that they were taking pieces of the carpeting from underneath the spare tire and testing it. It makes me wonder what is it that they saw there, and what do they think it might be that it was worth testing? That's something that really jumped out at me, as well as the large amount of weapons they took, and of course, all of the clothing that is similar to what was worn by Bridge Guy.
And it seems like he kept a lot of this stuff, right? So it's not like, you know, from the time of the double murder that, oh, the car's gone, this is gone. It seems like everything is still there. Like, wow. Let me ask you, Susan, from your perspective, what really jumped out to you?
Well, as you just mentioned, keeping all of those items, there's been so much criticism of law enforcement for not releasing this, and everyone wants to know and has the right to know, and we are grateful that we do have these documents. But in terms of the ongoing investigation, what if they did say that there was a bullet found between Abby and Libby there? Would Richard Allen have gotten rid of that gun? It's something to think about. And the video that we came out of the commercial break with, you heard someone yell, "Shame on you, child killer." One thing I noticed that they did both agree on was the change of venue, considering how many Google searches those in Delphi had done in terms of Richard Allen. So that is one thing they both agreed on. But what stood out to me was so much it seemed as though 2017, almost 6 years later, and keeping the blue jacket, as his wife allegedly said, that he still had that jacket, the gun, that he said no one, as Bobby mentioned, had ever used that gun. So would that evidence still be there if law enforcement gave us all the information that we wanted to know at the time?
Bobby Chacon, 5 years later, do you think any forensic evidence can be useful in this case that they got from the Ford Focus, from the floorboards, from the spare tire area?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they wouldn't have taken it if they didn't think it could lead to something. You hope for that. And like Susan just said, you know, he seemed to keep a lot of this stuff, which is really eerie to me because, you know, the press conference that Susan and I covered a couple years ago, remember that was the one where they were like, we know who you are, we think you live in this town. I mean, it was really damning. And I thought after that press conference, arrest was imminent because they said, we think we know who you are, we know you're in this community, you may even be in this room, I think the police chief said at that news conference, which, you know, both shocked us when we were listening to it. And so like the fact that he didn't like just purge, you know, every piece of clothing he had and sell his car and, you know, get rid of his gun, you know, it's telling that he had a level of comfort in getting away with this. And probably with each passing year, that level of comfort went up. And it's a little eerie to me.
Okay, Anya and Kevin, so we learned a lot because of, again, the work that you're doing and getting this stuff unsealed. What don't we still know?
Oh, man. I think Susan said it really well earlier. What took so long? Why are we here in 2023 having, you know, kind of speeding towards trial? And certainly that's a good development from the prosecution's perspective. But if Allen basically placed himself on the trails, you know, early on in 2017, why did it take so long to look into that? I know we reported that the tip was misplaced and that there was a clerical error. But I know that's not satisfying for everyone. We want to know, well, where was the follow-up? Where was the DNR officer coming forward and saying, hey, look into this guy? So I think there's going to have to be, you know, some sort of reckoning on that. And I guess going forward, we don't know what exactly the defense is going to come up in terms of their strategies. It seems like they're trying to throw out the ballistics. They're trying to challenge the search warrant. They're doing everything they can that a good defense lawyer will do to try to defend their client. So, but, you know, where all that leads and what ultimately their strategy will be for handling some of this damaging evidence against their client, I think will be very interesting to see how we get as we get towards trial.
Susan, we only have about 20 seconds here, but what final thing do you still want to know and you think is important here that we don't know yet?
And again, it's what Bobby said. It's really not important in terms of the charges of how. It's the why. And I always want to know that, and I know that the family does. It's why would you do this? Why pick out Abby and Libby? And was he on that bridge and spent, I don't know, months there waiting for the right opportunity? I know there was, as we saw in the probable cause affidavit, there were 3 young girls. Was that too many? Was this just the right timing for what he wanted to do? Was it timing? Did he point them out specifically? And why? 2 innocent lives and the damage he has done long-term for these families. It's just horrific. And to his family too, confessing to his wife, and he has a daughter that's married. It's the why did this have to happen?
Susan Hendricks, thank you so much. Great to see you tonight. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, again, thank you for coming on the Murder Sheet podcast. Download it, folks. Incredible. Bobby Jacone, always appreciate your expertise.